I still remember the exact sound that mailbox made that afternoon. One of those tiny metal squeaks that's somehow both familiar and slightly offensive, followed by the soft slap of an envelope hitting the backplate like it was delivering bad news straight to my soul. I'd barely even made it out of the truck. Engine still ticking warm, briefcase tossed in the passenger seat, before I shuffled down the driveway in my usual after-work days, shoulders slumped, half dreading whatever mountain of dishes might be waiting for me in the sink. My neighbor's sprinklers were hissing across the street. This gentle, rhythmic CHK, 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 kind of looping like a soundtrack to every ordinary day in the suburbs. And then I saw it. Beige envelope, no-nonsense font, return address that looked way too familiar. You ever get a letter that just smells like trouble? Not literally, but you can almost pick up that scent, the fragrance of someone holding a clipboard with a personal grudge. I swear, my blood pressure spiked before I even opened it. I didn't need to tear it open to know. This wasn't a spring block party invitation. This was the flavor of envelope that delivers disappointment in triplicate. My name on the front, in that cold, soulless serif font, the kind that's just built to ruin your afternoon, not even needing to bother with bold or italics. Mason, that was Abby, my wife, calling from the porch. She was holding her favorite mug and staring at this sad little hanging planter she'd managed to keep alive for a couple extra weeks. Abby's one of those rare souls who genuinely thinks she can revive any plant with enough patience. And I guess I admire that, even if I'm pretty sure some of them just die out of spite. "Everything okay?" she asked. I held up the envelope and tried to make my face look neutral. Depends how you define okay. If you mean blissful suburban peace, then no. If you mean the HOA is back at it again, then yeah, totally okay. She let out this sigh, already bracing herself like someone tightening their seatbelt before the turbulence hits. What is it this time? Did our trash can spend too long at the curb again? Porch pillow clashing with the seasonal feng shui. Worse, I muttered, ripping the flap. I skimmed past all the empty pleasantries, looking for the bolded words I knew would ruin my mood. And then I just stopped. Stared. Read again, then again. I swear, the birds in the oak above me paused mid-tweet just up the drama. They say my driveway is too wide. Abby blinked, trying to process. Too wide. Apparently, I'm in violation of the sacred hardscape width ratio set by the holy bylaws of Meadow Ridge Estates. I announced, putting on my best official notice voice. You have to laugh, right? Otherwise, you'll start tearing your own hair out. The Architectural Review Board has determined that our driveway exceeds the allowed footprint by 7.5 feet. I looked down at my glorious charcoal stone driveway, double wide, hand-laid, suburban pride and joy, and honestly couldn't decide if I was more insulted by the letter or kind of impressed by the level of pettiness. When we first bought this place, the driveway was a joke. Sad, cracked concrete, like the house was drooling. I drove an old Tacoma that always leaked something, and Abby's little Honda needed jump starts half the winter. We'd play musical cars every morning, trading keys just to get to work. So when we finally saved up, I hired a contractor named Hank, a guy with a beard that had opinions and boots that looked like they'd survived 3 world wars. Hank didn't talk in measurements. He talked in mission statements. 10 feet? That's a sad life, my friend. You deserve 20. Room to breathe. Room for a boat. I told him I didn't own a boat. But you could, he said. And honestly, he had a point. Sometimes it's just the possibility that matters. 3 days of dust, diesel, and commotion later, I had what I still consider a work of art, 20 feet across, smooth enough to skate on, wide enough for the family, the groceries, the mailman, and maybe a small parade. It was my little slice of the American dream. And now, apparently, it was a crime. Remediate within 14 days or incur a fine of $50 per day. I read out loud. $50 a day to make my driveway skinnier. They wanted me to rip up half the stones and pour dirt back in. Abby buried her face in her hands. Mason, this is why you shouldn't antagonize them. Remember the mailbox ornament fiasco? The time they accused you of arson? That elf was flammable, I said defensively. And you painted him gold. That was festive. I shot back, but she wasn't buying it. She sighed. Just go talk to them. Please. Be polite. Be normal. Which, Let's be real. When your spouse asks you to be normal, it's because they're worried you're already 70% gremlin. But I nodded, pocketed the letter, and marched across the street with the courage of a man who knows he's about to lose but wants to lose on his own terms. And there she was, Valerie Grant, HOA president, queen of the cul-de-sac, the kind of woman who trims her roses like she's prepping for open-heart surgery. She had that visor on her head again, the one I'm convinced she sleeps in. "Afternoon, Valerie," I said, stopping short of her perfectly edged grass. She didn't look up. "Mr. Carter. Snip. You got your letter?" "Yep. Clarifying the rules, are we?" She didn't blink. "Protects property values." I took a long breath. It's just a driveway. A nice driveway at that. Clean. Professional. She kept pruning. Non-compliant. I tried logic. It makes the neighborhood look better. Still non-compliant. It raises property values. Rules don't bend to ego, Mr. Carter. I looked around at 3 houses with plastic flamingos dressed for winter. So plastic flamingos are fine, but my driveway is an existential threat. "There's seasonal decor," she snapped, stabbing a rosebud like it owed her money. "Your driveway is an existential threat to aesthetic continuity." I mean, really, what do you even say to that? So what are my options? Dig it up or get fined. And you don't see how this is, I don't know, bonkers? She stared at me like I'd just offered a host goat yoga in her living room. Standards maintain dignity. And with that, I was dismissed. I walk home, chest tight, brain spinning. $50 a day, that's $1,500 a month. We had a vacation fund, a savings account, adult things to worry about. Now I was supposed to torch it all to satisfy a woman who once fined someone for aggressive windshield presence. Not happening. That night, I sat on the porch, beer in hand, watching the sunset spill across my illegal driveway. Abby came out. "You're brooding." "I'm strategizing." "You look like you're trying to shrink stone with your mind." That's when it hit me. Valerie's problem wasn't the material, it was the definition. It was a driveway, private, regulated. But roads? Roads are infrastructure. They have paint, they have lanes, they have rules. Roads are untouchable. That's when my pettiness dial hit 11. Next morning, I called Premier Line Striping. The guy who answered sounded like a cross between a mechanic and a stand-up comic. "Premier Striping, what do you need?" "I need a bike lane." "On my driveway." Silence. Then a laugh. "Come again." "Bike lane." With a little bike stencil. From the sidewalk to my garage. And a reserved parking space labeled Inspector. I could hear him grinning over the phone. "Buddy, we charge extra for poetic revenge." An hour later, 2 guys named Trey and Duke showed up, paint cans shaking. "This is art," Duke said. "This is going to upset someone important," Trey added. They taped, sprayed, stenciled, a huge crisp bike icon, a perfectly squared box with Inspector in block letters, 3 feet tall, bold as daylight. Abby came home just as they finished. She stood in the driveway, groceries in hand, silent for a good 5 seconds. "Mason," she whispered. "What is that?" "It's compliance, babe." "That is not compliance. That is a cry for help in latex paint." "It's a traffic initiative," I said. "If the kids want to practice safe cycling, who am I to stop them?" She shook her head. "Valerie's going to explode. I hope she's got safety goggles." Next morning, I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat on the porch, and waited. Sure enough, at exactly 8:17 a.m., Valerie stepped outside, clipboard in hand, scanning lawns for microcrimes. She saw the bike lane. Froze. Visor tilted, pin dropped. She marched over, stood square in the inspector spot, stared me dead in the eye. "Mason, what is this?" "Traffic safety. City support. ADA compliance." "You think you're clever?" "I think I'm compliant." Her voice shook. "This will be addressed." She stomped away, already dialing reinforcements. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, one older, looking like he'd seen it all, one younger, barely keeping a straight face. Valerie rushed them. "Officers, this man is defacing his property to harass the board." The old officer looked at the driveway, then me, then her, then back at me. "Sir, is this your driveway?" "Yes, sir." "And you painted a bike lane?" "Yes, officer." "For safety." an inspector spot for officials and disability access. The younger cop just about lost it. The older one rubbed his face. "Ma'am, this isn't a crime. Please stop calling unless someone's in danger." Valerie turned an impressive shade of purple and stormed off. Was that the end? Oh no. 2 days later, emergency HOA meeting. Conference room full. Neighbors pretending not to be excited. Abby squeezing my hand so tight, I thought she'd snap a bone. "We are here to address a willful violation, an act of harassment." She clicked the projector. Up pops a giant photo of my driveway. Gasps, laughter barely hidden. "He's created illegal markings, mocked the board, undermined community standards. We will pursue fines, liens, legal action." I stood up, calm, polite, like the villain in a family movie. "May I respond?" I didn't wait. "This," I said, holding up my mother-in-law's temporary disability parking tag, "is for ADA access, federally protected. That blue spot is for her." Denying it would be a violation. Murmurs. Valerie's jaw dropped. "And the bike lane?" I continued. "That's for neighborhood safety. Surely the board supports safety." And then I pulled out the HOA bylaw. According to Section 9, vehicles may not park on the street overnight. If my driveway is made narrower, where am I supposed to park? I spread my arms. I created a transit lane and visitor space to avoid conflicting rules. This isn't rebellion, it's harmony. The board's lawyer, calling him by speaker, cleared his throat. "Madam Chair, I advise dropping all actions immediately." Applause. Someone in back shouted, "Let the man have his runway." Valerie stormed out. A month later, there was a for sale sign in her yard, then a moving truck, and just like that, the visor vanished from our block. Now, sometimes I sit out on the porch, sipping coffee, watching kids scoot up and down my infrastructure. My mother-in-law did visit, rolling up like royalty into her reserved spot. Abby just shakes her head and laughs every single time. That driveway's still gloriously wide, still the envy of the street, now immortalized in paint and legend. Funny, isn't it? Sometimes peace isn't won by shouting or surrender. Sometimes it's won by pettiness so perfect it becomes art. So let me ask you, was I justified? Did I go too far? If your HOA trying to make you dig up your driveway, would you fight or fold? Drop your verdict in the comments. Share your wildest HOA stories. Hit like for more true tales of suburban madness. And don't forget, never underestimate a homeowner with time, paint, and just enough spite to build public infrastructure on private land.